Welcome. I call this meeting of the Water Commission for Tuesday, November 19th to order at 6:55 p.m. Request a roll call. Dr. Carmichael? Present. Don Stone? Nathan Dorsey? Here. Jim Mueller? Here. Stephen Stedman? Here. Kevin Harshberger. So we have all present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have anyone signed up for the first citizen comment period, item 3? Okay. Item 4, business items. A1, approval of the minutes for the September 17th, 2024 Water Commission regular meeting. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes that were provided in your packet? On the left? To the right? May I have a motion to approve and a second?
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Second? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item B, discussion, reports, updates. This would be from the Utility Department Monthly Activity Report. Stephen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. For the month of October, we pumped 50.80 acre feet out of the Edwards with a year-to-date total of 301.05, with at the end of October 158.14. I had the wrong number under available on the council report, so I changed that to 158.14. Trinity, we pumped 50.72 acre feet with a year-to-date total of 441.31. Edwards is still in stage 4. We currently are in stage 2 at this time. All samples for the month for the distribution system came back good, passed. Our water loss was 1.4%. We completed 291 work orders, 58 work orders, replaced 5 meters. The total portal customers was 186. Daily meter readability percentages was 99.67% for 1,646 assigned meters. We had one we had one service line repair, approximately 10,000 gallons lost on Shining Elk. The service line connection to the water main was most likely not tightened down to the water main correctly when it was originally installed, which over time caused water to get past the O-ring seal, which created 2 holes in the main. We had to install a repair clamp over the holes and install a brand new service saddle and restore service to the water. No new water leak requests at this time. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Stephen. Again, commendation to you and the department for the low water loss adjustment. Even with the leak that you had, it still was a very, very good number. Any questions from the commissioners for Stephen on the left?
How are we looking at our Edwards number toward the end of the year?
Well, right now, if we would not pump anything more as of today, we would have 70, I believe it was 79 acre feet left. So that's with Edwards restrictions that we lose some acre feet a day or percentage a day. So right now, if we weren't pumping anything for the rest of the year, we would have 79 acre feet. So we roundabout pumped 1.5 acre feet a day. Would probably be around 1.1, 1.4, 1.5, maybe about 10 to 15 acre feet left by the end of the year, so we're doing pretty good.
I have one. There were 5 meters replaced. Is there any type of a pattern showing here? This seems to be a little bit bigger number than what I recall from the past.
Not sure why it's that amount. It's still the same thing. It's usually where water's getting past the thread, between the washer and the threads, and it makes its own little groove through the material, and it creates a leak. So that's a common thing we've been seeing with these meters. But they still honor their warranty and just swap them out for the stainless steel ones. These are the old either composite or brass ones that we first got installed that are coming up.
And the new ones are stainless then?
Yes.
A little bit harder, okay. I have no other questions. Item 2, items applicable to the Water Commission that were discussed at the last city council meeting. I did not present as we did not have an October meeting. The one key item I noted from the November 6th city council meeting was that the completion of the 2252 water line relocation is delayed 3 to 4 months at that time due to what I understood from the city engineer is redesign work with the other utilities, waiting for that to be completed. The contractor will be called back in. Again, it's not germane directly to anything we're doing, but it's of interest. Nancy, was there anything else of note from the meeting that you saw that would be of interest to the commission?
Nothing pursuant to anything that was discussed at the meeting. I just want to let the commission know that the water rate increase will appear on the water bills that the residents receive in December.
Okay.
That's the only other thing I wanted to add, just to remind everybody that
Okay. Thank you.
will be occurring.
Any questions from the commissioner for Nancy on that or any other items? Okay. Item number 3, ordinance number 61, drought management plan. I think this is really, does the subcommittee of Don and Kevin really have anything to report for this evening?
Not much. Time has been a problem, but the big thing that we were asked for this time is just what's the way ahead for how to do the work? And I think the best way to do that would be to get some additional people and have one group look at the definitions. One group look at the basic ordinance, and then one look at the appendix. But in order to do that, we kind of need to agree on the big changes, I don't know if that's not the right word, but we looked at the areas of concern last time, and just to kind of synchronize the effort, there's a couple things I would recommend we decide on before we do that, but that probably needs to come under the recommendations part.
Okay. If I might,
Sorry, looking at the wrong agenda.
yeah. If I might suggest that we go back to some of the original work that was done, all of us reread that, and then perhaps come next week or next month to really iron out what we think are the major goals, and then perhaps we can make assignments from
Okay,
there.
and I can have a little bit more.
Yeah.
I can get it to Dawn. This last month and a half has been a little bit crazy on my end, so.
Okay.
So that would be fine. I mean, I've got it kind of started, but I don't, in looking at it, I just don't think that Dawn and I by ourselves are gonna be able to, I mean, we can come up with the first draft if that's what the commission wants, but it might be easier to just have some overall agreement and then let
Okay.
people go individually and work on sections.
Okay. Would it be acceptable to say that we'll come back with the intent, because it's getting a little bit later tonight, next time we meet and try and hash out what we think the major items are, and then proceed with some assignments to kind of parse it up?
Yeah, I don't think there's any hurry in it.
Okay. Well, it's good to keep it moving. You put a lot of effort into that first step. So we'll let the minutes reflect that. Don, any comments? Any comments from the other commissioners? Okay. Item number 4, the Water Master Plan. Any updates on that, Nancy?
Stephen and the city engineer have been working very closely together, identifying needs for the system, whether it be new infrastructure, replacement infrastructure, maintenance of infrastructure. So they are working very closely together on that. I don't have a timeline yet on that, but I can guarantee you that is moving forward.
Question for you, Nancy, on those, you said timeline, just perked my ears. So I know we talked about it last time in our last meeting, is there going to be a timeline in the master plan of when we expect certain infrastructure to take place and happen so we can plan for that in the budget accordingly, year by year?
The water master plan will define things that need to be either added to the system, replaced, et cetera, within the water system. And
defining like maintenance schedules and.
I
things
don't
like
know
so-
that it'll go down into a maintenance schedule specifically, but we will have to take from that, identify what our greater needs are, and move from there to see if we are going to have the funding in our budget yearly budget to fund those projects, or if we're going to have to seek some debt to perform those projects. But at this point in time, it's kind of hard to say yet because we haven't seen that full plan.
Gotcha. All right, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Moving on then to item C, recommendations. We have 2 tonight. The first one is a request to appeal a water loss adjustment denial for 9200 Gloxinia Drive for the billing period of July 23rd to August 23rd, 2024. I think the way we'll handle this is Stephen will provide his comments because he's obviously given this a review, and then in the audience, the petitioner is present, and then we'll ask Mr. Ulrich to come up. So Stephen, if you go through the request and what you found in the basis of your recommendation.
Well, as you can see it from the meter data and the receipts and everything, that there was a significant leak for a long time. Does show that we had our water utility rep go on the 26th and the 29th to help find the leak. And yeah, significant repairs were made. The only thing that disqualifies it is that the total water loss, the total bill for that time frame was only 31,000 gallons, not 40. So that was the purpose for the denial.
Starting on the right, questions, comments for Stephen?
Since you know that I'm the pain, I'll defer and come back.
Okay.
I don't have any.
None for Stephen.
Yeah, so this is my first one here. So I guess can you just kind of go over high level of what we're looking for here, what the request is exactly? So assuming they're wanting an adjustment on their bill because of the water loss, or are they requesting, I see like Home Depot receipts and things like that. So are they requesting those funds back, or like what exactly is the request?
They would get a partial adjustment to their bill. It wouldn't get up to half, maybe up to half, but it wouldn't be the full price. Normally it's, if we can determine what the actual water loss is, we can plug that into a formula and give them a credit back on that. If we can't determine what the water loss is, we'll go back in past bills and see if we can come up with what their average use was, and then we'd plug that into the formula to give them a credit.
Okay, so all the receipts he has in here, that's just to prove that there was something that was repaired?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, Kevin, back to you.
The original denials there, that was your, I mean, the only place this has been right now is through the Public Works Department, right? So that, you just didn't meet the threshold, and that was the original denial. It was unclear to me as I read through the quantities, what the actual total water loss was estimated to be. It looked like you was stopped highlighting, and I just don't understand where it started and stopped. Can you clarify that?
Actually, it looked like it started, it's been for a very long time, but they requested, for that particular billing period. From the 23rd, it started billing period, estimated on about 16,000 gallons. It looked like it's about 30 to 35 gallons. About 30 to 35 gallons per hour for like 18 days, give or take. So basically, if this would have been like, if this was a 40,000 gallons for their tire bill, they might have got about 45, 50 gallons, $50 credit back.
Okay, that's enough for now. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
At this point, Mr. Ulrich, would you like to come up to the podium and talk through this with us?
One more question, Stephen, while he's walking up here. So the 40,000, was that set by Public Works, or is that a hard stop? 40,000, otherwise we won't work on it, or?
That's in our water ordinance under
Okay.
the leak adjustment
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay, so that's it,
1607.
within the ordinance.
54.
54, section, or number C, or number 6.
Can I ask a couple of questions at this point? I was
yes, sir.
notified on, I believe, close to the 2nd of August. One of the representatives from the water department came by. I was actually out of town that day, but he came back by on Monday morning, identified to me that I had a leak in my system. I said, "Do you have any idea where?" And he began to get out his water witch, a metal water witch that pointed me off in one direction of the yard and then over to another direction of the yard. Long story short, my son was not living with me then, but he used to have some plumbing experience. We started working on that very Monday, digging a hole, trying to find out where this line started. He actually installed a valve on where the water comes into the house, so we could identify and shut off the water and identify if it was just coming from the outside or whether it was the water that was leaking on the inside of the house. So once we identified outside, we then started coming down a long driveway trying to pinpoint where that water was leaking. We couldn't see any water coming through. We get down to the end of my driveway where it goes into the backyard, and the water system is right over there. We figured, well, hell, that's it. That's where the water's going. But it doesn't. It goes into the backyard. So we track this thing. It goes all the way around behind my swimming pool. Long story short, we finally, we said, heck with this. We're going to cap it off. We're going to go straight across. We had to dig up some concrete to get all that done. But I was notified, I believe, on the 2nd. This thing started on, according to this billing cycle, on March, where? No, July, I'm sorry. July 23rd, I was notified, I think on the 2nd or something like that. I don't know what I'm looking at paying for this thing if I don't get some kind of an adjustment. All I know is I'm 75 years old. I'm on a very fixed income. I did everything I could to try and get this thing done quickly as I could. And lo and behold, I got it under budget, so to speak. I don't understand the logic. I didn't get to $40,000, but if I would have, y'all would have given me an adjustment. I don't understand the logic behind that. I was able to finally get it capped and get it fixed underneath that at 31,000 gallons or 30, whatever it was. I don't know what that's going to cost me. I don't know anything about it. I'm just here to try and appeal to try and see what you guys would listen to me and let me try and explain my side of it and go from there. Any questions for me?
I think, first of all, thank you for coming up here. If I'm not mistaken, I mean, part of the packet here is the bill for that period, which is right around $229, which is what the bill.
I've already paid for that then, haven't I?
I don't know. I suspect so, yeah. That's in the past. A question for you, has the water use dropped back down again? Your monthly,
I don't know. I never look at the readings from the water. My water gets paid automatically, and they automatically
Okay.
draft my account and pay the water bill. And if I'm fortunate enough to see the City of Garden Ridge letter that I get every month, I try and look at it because it is listed there, and it seems like right off the bat, I got a bill for $211, and I don't know what last schedule was.
okay. It would appear, just looking from the data that we've got that goes back maybe 2 years, that at one point your average use was maybe less than 10,000 gallons a month. And then.
So it's really difficult. I apologize for
Yeah.
interrupting you, Bill, but I live in a very large lot. I have a swimming pool that's 40,000 gallon. God help me, why I did that, I don't know, but it was back when I was making a lot of money. And so to try and keep up my yard, to make my neighbors be proud to live in that subdivision and live close to me, I sometimes overdo the water just to try and make the house look nice. And then I've got a swimming pool that's 40,000 gallons. You can only understand it's just a pain in the butt to backwash and do all the stuff that you have to do with it. So if all I'm looking at is the money that I've already paid, I'm wasting you gentlemen's time. If all I had to do was pay $200 and something, I wouldn't have come up here and wasted your time with visiting. I was imagining some kind of elaborate amount of money that I was going to have to pay for 31,000 gallons.
We don't have any bills following the 8/31 bill date.
Yeah.
But based on the equipment you got, the work you did, the extensive pictures, and your knowledge of this and your sons, it looks like you fixed the problem. So
We fixed the problem, and I had to pay my son out of pocket, but yeah, that was
Yeah.
what we did instead of hiring a professional plumbing company to come out. It would have cost me thousands.
to close that off, I mean, it's not germane to what your request is here, but we want to make sure that the leak is fixed to
Absolutely.
go back and.
That was one of the things I was gonna ask as part of my question series is, I don't, nobody's ever come to me and said, hey, by the way, we've been checking your water meter and.
Okay.
And you've got a leak. How they would know that, I don't know, but we figured out how they read the water meter. I don't know if they've checked it again or not, but I would be proud if they would check it every month. I mean, I never knew I had a leak before that guy came out there and did his water witch thing, which I thought was rather funny.
Before I speak further, any other
Yeah,
commissioners
the
have
portal-
any other questions or comments?
Signing up for the portal would be a perfect scenario for that. So AMI, right? AMI
Correct.
portal, I don't know if you've heard of that. Michelle could definitely give you some more details on that. That's exactly what it's for. It'll alert you when there's a suspected leak.
So I would,
it'll
in that
catch it
letter
early.
that I get monthly, would I see something specifically to me on that?
I
or-
think there was a flyer at one of the bills a few months ago that mentioned it. But yeah, let Michelle, she's the expert on it. I'll let her tell you about it.
Michelle's my girl. She's been great helping me with this thing, so I appreciate her.
Thank you. Yes, so you can sign up to actually have a login of your own and look at your usage on a daily, monthly, hourly basis.
Okay.
You would have probably received alerts, but if you had a correct phone number, and I believe that was the only thing that was causing you not to get an alert, was why we sent somebody out there, is because your phone number was updated wrong in our water account.
Yeah, I
And
used
so-
to have a home number. and
Yeah.
I canceled it with all the spam calls, so.
Yeah, and so that's why
But
you
I'm all
didn't get
for it,
that.
but I'll contact you after this.
Sure.
And we can get something started on there. And other than that, I'm sorry to waste y'all's time, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. And I feel much better about it. Now, I'm gonna go eat some dinner.
But no problem.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Any discussions or thoughts? If not, I'm not quite sure how we should phrase this motion. Basically, the motion that I would carry as a recommendation to the city council is to reinforce the decision that was made by the water department. Questions, comments on that?
Well, I'm not sure we even need one if we're not recommending that they do anything.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
think we could just
I
have a
don't think-
consent.
Okay, I didn't know whether, because it's formally on here, it has to go forward as a recommendation, but if we can and adhere to the satisfaction of the resident and ourselves, so be it.
Yeah, I think he was obviously satisfied
Good.
that, and understood, so I don't think anything really needs to go forward to city council at all.
Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Y'all did not take any action?
Great. And
Can I-
Stephen, thank you for your work on this and delving into it and getting the details right.
I mean,
Okay, moving on. The next, under C recommendations, item number 2, ordinance number 61-08-2022, an ordinance of the City Council of Garden Ridge, City of Garden Ridge, Texas, establishing the drought management plan for the City of Garden Ridge, establishing trigger points and demand reduction measures, providing a variance procedure, providing a penalty for violations of this ordinance, providing a cumulative and savings clause, providing for severability, and declaring an effective date. This is a request for variance to Stage 2 watering restrictions for 21320 Waterwood Drive, Garden Ridge, Texas, which is the address, I believe, of the Club of Garden Ridge. And our action is to review and make a recommendation regarding this request. In the packet is a variance request from the Club at Garden Ridge. Has the city made any additional information requests regarding the initial letter that was received for more information, or what we have is what is in this letter?
Michelle, that's all you got?
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
so
thank
that's
you.
it then.
And Mr. Overman, are you available to discuss this with the commission? Okay. Invite you up, Mr. Overman.
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of share our perspective on this. I'm a citizen of Garden Ridge for probably, going on 30 years. I've been here a long time. And done a lot of work with the city. I'm on the commercial side of it. And so the reason I'm here tonight is because what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask you to consider looking at this from a perspective of a business owner, not from a business owner, because I have businesses here that are not relative to this particular presentation I'm making to you tonight. This is specifically about the Club of Garden Ridge and the venue building, which is a wedding ballroom area. That's 16 acres. The Club of Garden Ridge sits on 16 acres. So I'm not talking about 16 acres. I'm talking about a very specific, very small area, probably smaller than most of all lawns in front yards of Garden Ridge. So if you're familiar with the Club of Garden Ridge at all, if you're not, let me try to explain. There is a ballroom banquet hall, and in front of it is a small grass area with a gazebo, and that's where brides get married, and bride and grooms get married. And when they, and then there's shrubbery around that, and then there's a small area, probably no bigger than this area here, on the side of the building that I'm talking about. What I'm asking is that when we go into restrictions, and I'm a homeowner here myself, I live here in Garden Ridge, so I understand how valuable water is, but and I have an office building here. I bought several office buildings that I'm not requesting this same request for because it's not relevant to what I'm talking about. But We have a specific business that is only survives off of the aesthetics and the landscape of the business. If that grass and our shrubs dry up and start turning brown, we go out of business. I mean, we shut down. We can't offer anything to these brides. They won't book with us because it's a very competitive market, and they're going to other places, and those places, if the grass is green and the shrubs look nice, that's where they're gonna go. If they walk up to our place and it's dying and the shrubs are barely surviving, it's a big deterrent to those bride and grooms to make their decision. And so I'm asking you to look at the you know, putting before city council possibly some type of new variance or ordinance that would look at a business that pertains, that survives off of landscape versus a private home, that if they don't water their yard, if their yard doesn't look green and beautiful, obviously it's upsetting. Nobody wants to have a brown yard, right? But if we have a restriction, that's what happens to your yard, you're not losing anything. You're upset and you don't like the look of it, but you're not losing anything financially. It's just a disappointment. On the other hand, I've got a business over here that if it dries up and everything turns brown, I literally close my doors. I go out of business, and that affects not just me, but the city of Garden Ridge, and that's the Club of Garden Ridge, and it represents a lot of people from Garden Ridge, are members of that club. A lot of people come to Garden Ridge for those weddings, which it's representative of this city. And I'm just asking you to strongly consider, you know, after however many years how old is the city? 1972. We've never really addressed it, because as the city has grown and we've built more commercial buildings and businesses and things, we're still on the same playing field as a private homeowner. And I'm not bringing this up. I'm not bringing this up because I'm asking for a motion on it or anything, but I have a building at the corner of Bat Cave and 2252, and I have 45 stations on that complex. And think how long it takes to go through 45 stations just to get it watered minimally, just to keep it alive. And if you compared that to a homeowner, which I am, and I have 4 stations, it's a vast difference for somebody that has, you know, acreages and large amounts of property to keep alive versus 4 or 5 stations in your home, front and backyard. But specifically tonight, I am asking that you would consider making a motion to the city council to, I don't even know how to word this. I mean, that would be up to you and for discussion tonight, but some kind of an allowance for the venue at the Club of Garden Ridge to allow us to not go out of business because of dry water. It's not affecting us, obviously, 90% of the year, but in the months of July, August, and September, those 3 months, it's just, it's really hard. We've lost quite a few weddings because of it, and that's the lifeblood of the club. The memberships over there are important, but without the weddings, that club would close down, and we'd be putting plywood up on the windows without the wedding business and the banquets that we have. That's my plea.
Thank you for the explanation. At this point, I'd like to open it up for any questions from the other commissioners, starting on my left.
I don't have questions, but I have comments. I don't know if we want to.
Fair enough.
Go ahead. Okay, so all for small business. I want everything to support the small business in Garden Ridge. So I know that we all know, 2252 is getting extremely developed right now. Those lots are going to get built up sooner than you think. So these variances requests are going to be coming. So I definitely think we need to revisit the ordinance. I know, Kevin, we already been talking about this. So I think we should definitely put something specifically for businesses like you mentioned. When we got this packet, I was reading through and just kind of thinking through what does Garden Ridge look like in 5-10 years. There's going to be a significantly higher number of businesses, right? And so we got to think differently. It's a different way of thinking with water usage. So I'm for something like this because obviously it's specific to a venue. However, you got to be very careful on how it's worded, because not saying anything that you'll do it, but other businesses could come in and potentially take advantage of specific ordinances like that, right? And so we just want to be careful on how we do that. So I think we should definitely be supporting small business owners in Garden Ridge, but we got to be a bit careful and look for the future on how that's going to play out.
Can I make a comment about something you said, Nathan?
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't bring up my office buildings, because that's why I'm being very careful, because I have $2,000 water bills over there sometimes. I mean, not because of leaks or something like this is Julian, but when my leak goes, it's not $200, it's $2,000. And so if I, as a business owner who, you know, if whatever business I had here in Garden Ridge, I wouldn't come to you and say, I want to extend my water usage because I have an office building or because I have a, it would be because my business literally survives on landscape versus just I have an office building with a yard, because that's equal to a private ownership and a private residence. I'm not saying it about the club. I'm not saying would you give variance to the club, which is members over there, which is, we have our own grass, tennis courts and everything. I'm not talking about, I'm talking a very small area because we literally live or die off of the landscape. And so just to, I agree, I'm actually agreeing with you saying that if you worded it so that it was very specific to the life and
Right, we
death
have
of the business.
specify the request.
Yeah.
So like you mentioned it's 16 acres, so just giving it to the Club of Garden Ridge, technically that allows your variance to be used on the whole 16 acres, right? So it's just something that we would need to be a bit more specific about if we're gonna have variances like that.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
I would have questions on your landscape and what you've done or proposed to do to use water-resistant native vegetation so that you don't have a need for water. And you described some very small areas, which I'm having a little problem with because I walk the neighborhood and I have lots of neighbors with very green lawns. Mine's brown, but I have lots of people who have areas that are very green, but you need to, I think before you come before us, have some thought or done some research on water-resistant vegetation, artificial turf, other things you can do to maintain your landscape.
I appreciate that. We do have in all of our shrub areas, they're all drip systems, which is one of the most efficient ways you can to water. On the specific area that I'm talking about, there is a septic drip line underneath the grass. So we have to be very careful. And you would think that would keep it watered, but when you have an event on a Saturday night, and that's the only time that water runs through that particular system in that area, it doesn't sustain the greenery enough to keep that alive. So we have to also water it put a water sprinkler on it and water it. So it's St. Augustine grass. I know that absorbs a lot of water. Could we rip the whole St. Augustine grass up and put in a different kind of grass to possibly like a fescue or what's the other grass I'm thinking of?
Bermuda.
But, huh?
Bermuda, that does not die.
It wouldn't, again, it goes back to the expectation of the look of what brides look for in a competitive market. And, if you have thin Bermuda-type grass, you don't see that hardly anywhere, and it just wouldn't fly in the market. So that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, but other opportunities for recycling. And I don't know how much water you get out. I've got an area of my lawn and a tree that is thriving because I ran the line from my AC out to the tree, and it loves it. So I don't know how many gallons a day just from my air conditioner that goes out that direction.
You have trees? at
Just
your yard?
one that
Just one?
gets water.
This particular
from my
area does
AC.
not have any trees above it because it seats the chairs for all the
Yeah,
visitors
but,
and guests.
but
So
I
it's
don't know if you can
straight sun.
reclaim water from, I know there are ways to reclaim water, but I know an AC system produces a lot of water. And I don't know if you recover that or it goes into your septic.
It would be very difficult with the way that our buildings are set up there and the landscape that we have to do that. I mean, it'd be tough to do that. And our ACs don't run in our banquet hall 7 days a week like they do in a home. They run basically when the events happen, so we're limited to what we would get off of that venue building. Not a bad idea, just I don't know if it would work for us like it works for you.
Thank you, Dr. Carmichael. Jim?
Mr. Overman, thank you for coming out here and taking some time to talk with us tonight, and also appreciate you doing this well ahead of time. You said you need this in the summer, and it's usually you get these and people go, well, we need this in 2 weeks, and
Right.
sometimes we don't have time to get that done for them. So appreciate all the lead time you gave us and all the discussion. I had 2 questions for you real quick. You mentioned drip irrigation, and you can also, there's already a provision in the ordinance already that you can hand water for these. So if it's a small area, is hand watering or drip irrigation, would that be able to work? Or
Well-
why wouldn't this, why not?
We do hand water. We do hand water now. And it's not like we're not trying to be conservative with what we've been doing. I'm just asking if there was to be some concession to a little more leniency. So we do that. We do hand water. But visually, the banquet, the wedding area it's hard to do, would probably be equal to where you are. This wall to the front door area is the area that I'm talking about, squared, to give you a visual concept of that area. So we do hand water. It takes 2 guys to do it, and it takes hours and hours to do that. And there's a lot to do on 16 acres. A lot of things break down, a lot of mowing, a lot of edging. So it's we do it, but it's challenging.
Yeah, I get where you're going now. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You
The other thing, I would like to second what Commissioner Dorsey said earlier. We are in the midst of looking at Ordinance 61, as you probably heard a few minutes ago, and I think this is definitely something we need to start looking at for the Ordinance 61 update. And hopefully we get that done in time for summertime.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also want to express my thanks to you coming and helping enlighten us on this issue. The area that you're talking about that needs the additional irrigation, is it in a zone that can be isolated from the rest of the property, or?
It can.
Okay, so just something that we
It can.
want to consider as we're sort of updating the ordinances as to, as we stated earlier, it's going to be challenging to describe it to get the intended result and not the unintended results that may occur, so, okay.
And that's why I'm not trying to take advantage of this request to say, would you just give us a variance for the club?
Right.
I'm saying a very specific, smaller area of the
Right.
club, considering the acres we're
Right.
talking about.
Right. I just thought that came to mind that might be helpful as we're going through this process, if maybe we could get from you sort of a description of what this area is. I mean, I think we would, I know I would kind of struggle on the wording as to how to describe this area to be able to put into an ordinance, so.
I could put down specific
Yeah,
dimensions
just, I mean,
of
you're
it.
obviously familiar with the.
Sure.
The situation and the geography there, so I think that would certainly help me and maybe the other commissioners as well.
Be glad to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I echo my fellow commissioners. Thank you for coming out and providing the input that you did. Just a couple of questions, and then I'll try to wrap it up. But you already addressed the area. Several people have talked about that, trying to come up with a more specific description of the size of it. That's great. What I want to take just a second on, there's actually in the ordinance guidance on when a variance can be granted. And for one thing, it talks about special conditions have to have an undue hardship, which would result from compliance. So it may be to your interest in going forward to specify a little more clearly, like what the revenue loss has been or is, to quantify that a little bit. as well as some of these other things that were mentioned for the other options that are already in the ordinance, like the drip irrigation, reclaimed water. I know that area has access to surface water that could be redirected. Vegetation, all those things could be put in the variance, like we've tried this, and we still need some additional relief. And then I would also suggest you consider having it time-bound, like if you have some plan in the future to replace it with different types of grass or to add in drip irrigation, you could ask that the variance would be for 1 season or 2 seasons, like have some sort of time-bound as opposed to asking the city council to in perpetuity grant you the ability to do this.
I don't even know Mr. Harshbarger,
Harshbarger, that's fine.
Harshbarger, sorry, it's a long last name. I don't even know if me asking for a variance is the right thing. I'm kind of going with Mr. Dorsey over here that, I'm saying work with me here, because it's not just about me right now, it's about the growth of the city. There are plans to develop the corner at 3009 and 2252. I happen to be the owner of that corner.
Right.
I'm trying to work with city council to do something. We're going to do something. There's going to be restaurants. I don't know if you know much about restaurants, and some businesses, they consume lots of water. And you wouldn't even be able to control that very much because it's not about their landscape, it's just about their water usage with dishwashing and serving water and cleaning and all that stuff. So it's an issue, and I would like to ask if maybe this is something we look at as a change of the ordinance to identify the difference between a private residence and a commercial business that consumes more water as a part of their business. And so I didn't mean to cut you off with your question, but the more you kept using the word variance, my head, I'm going, is a variance the right thing to do, or is it to approach the council with the possibility of writing an ordinance, because we've never done it in our city ordinances. We've never addressed it because, look at Garden Ridge. It's just, it hasn't developed. We have no retail except for the corner that's about ready to fall down and getting ready to get bulldozed over with construction that we have. But it's coming. It's not going to stop. It's going to continue. So
No, I understand that, and like I said, we are looking at it, but
Yeah.
there are other places and other ordinances that do address commercial businesses and their water use requirements. So, they are there, they're just not always easy to find. The point of this current ordinance 61 is for drought mitigation and demand reduction, and so that's going to be the issue. So, the intent behind the ordinance is for business owners, landowners, whoever, to switch to more conservative systems to get done what you need to do. And there are options longer term that can address this. So I think short-term variance is the right word, because I don't know how quickly Ordinance 61 gets rewritten, and I don't know what the appetite on the council is going to be to carve out exceptions. So my recommendation is just that you think about what do I, kind of think a long-term strategy and a short-term strategy in case, next month or whatever you do want to come back and ask for a variance. Other things that could be done that are in here is like, look at the least restrictive way to do it. So instead of saying I want to do 2 hours a day, 4 days a week, maybe you say, I would like my variance to be, I want to comply with the stage restrictions of 1 stage above. Like if we're in stage 2, I'll comply with stage 1 restrictions, or something along those lines. It gives you some relief, but it doesn't get the, doesn't impact the public health, safety, and welfare of other customers, right? It just helps you get what you need done, accomplished. Now that you can do that or not do that, I'm just trying to say, when we make recommendations to council, we have to kind of think along those lines. What is everyone else going to say? The points you make about businesses are all valid, and we will certainly have those discussions, I'm sure. But again, the purpose of the ordinance is overall demand reduction. So I don't see that to be specific. It would not be possible to address every possible business circumstance that would arise. What we would like to do, though, is have an easier process for getting variances. and a little bit more guidance on how that can be done. But that's for, we'll work on that. But if you're not looking for pushing forward right now with the
No,
variance,
I'm not in a
then-
hurry for this. This is just my first introduction to you, to ask you to really consider, can we have some dialogue and some consideration for the future of Garden Ridge? And for people specifically that their businesses rely on landscape, which there's very few that fall into that category. So I don't think you would be bombarded. If I came to you with my office buildings, you could say, you know, people are gonna still rent office buildings if the grass is dry, which they would, but people will not. And as quantifying the loss that we have would be impossible. It's just like, you think about it, if you walked into a store and you chose not to buy something, you're not gonna tell them that you chose to go somewhere else because of that. You're just gonna go walk out and go somewhere else. So how to quantify the loss that we have because of it would be almost impossible to do. Because
I concede it would be very difficult, but I don't know how long you know, the business has been doing this. You might be able to look back and say, hey, this year was a drought. My grass was brown, 2 years ago was not, if there was a measurable difference. I also don't know from the data provided what percentage of the revenue is associated with this business compared to the other functions at the club.
half,
So-
50% of our business is because of the wedding. So if the
Yeah.
wedding business went under, we couldn't sustain ourselves, the Club of Garden would close.
But you see, that's what I'm trying to say. When you go to
Yeah.
council, the more facts you can give, the better case you can tell.
Right.
They don't like it too much, at least I don't think they like it too much if we just say, hey, we think this is a better idea because, I mean, they like us to have reasons behind it. They're backed up in the ordinance.
Right.
But anyway, I'll stop now because I get where you're going. I think it's great. And we'll certainly have the conversation as we're looking at ordinance 61. If you decide you need to push forward with the variance at a short term, then by all means, we would entertain it. At least that's my feeling as one member of the commission.
No, sir, I'm not in a hurry. I
Yeah.
just would like you to have discussion.
No further questions.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Good discussion, and thank you for the details that are coming out.
All right.
There's, as a commission action, there's two courses of action here. A, if this was as much a discussion without an immediate pressing time frame, because like you said, the July through August window, which is really critical, has passed. I drove by that area, and I've kind of pictured in my mind's eye where that was. It's a little green area nestled up in there between the buildings.
Yes.
The second part of it is the variance stands as presented, in which case the commission is obliged to vote on it either way tonight as a recommendation to the council. Am I not? I believe I'm correct on that. I gave this a lot of thought and did some research, basically Googling and looking at Saws, Austin, any related areas. First of all, everybody knows this. Everything around here is in a very high state of restriction. Garden Ridge is actually one of the lower areas. I couldn't find in my searching that there was any breakout between how residents and businesses are treated. And I specifically looked for that because this obviously is a business-related request. So I'd have to say, in terms of looking for guidance elsewhere, it doesn't seem to exist. The rules are actually quite similar to what we have in place. The wording's slightly different. I can't answer the question whether wedding venues across the Hill Country are struggling because the Hill Country is dry all over, so we have no knowledge on how they're doing and competing with you if they have private wells,
Most
or are
of
they
them-
struggling with this?
Most of them have private wells.
Okay.
And I have a question if I can.
Sure.
Commissioner. And I don't know if, so we actually have a well on the club. We own a well. And I don't really know if I have the right, I guess I have the right to do with that water whatever I want to. This is more of a question than a comment. I could use that water somehow but I don't know if I have enough pressure to like get the water out on the deal. But I could use that water, but I have 2 acre-feet of water.
Okay.
So is that something that, in other words, in a drought situation, I'm not restricted with my well, it's only with the city water. Is that accurate?
But is it an Edwards well you have?
It is.
So all you would be really doing would be complying with their restrictions, and I'm sure
Right,
you
which
lose
I know,
the same
I've met
amount.
with them, so I know I have unlimited use of the water from Edwards Awkward's perspective. And
So I
this-
believe it'd be, you'd be able to do what you need to if it's
Okay.
dried out, if you're paying for your own water out of your own well.
Okay,
But you'd be complying with Edwards' rules
Right.
on what they take away during restrictions.
so that could be a solution
Okay.
for me possibly to do something with that. But before I leave tonight, I'm coming to you as just a citizen, not just as a business owner, and I'm also looking at future development for the city, to maybe as a water commission, to really think about what's going forward, the separation of the two entities being private landowner, homeowner, and a business that uses high volumes of water.
Over the past year, the commission's reviewed and has used the same variance request criteria, basically to residential properties. These have been consistently and uniformly declined. The city council has followed these recommendations. And I'm reading this because I wanted to get the words right here. In most cases, there were alternatives, though not convenient, that could help the situation. The principal option was hand watering. That is it's very allowable in this current restriction at any time. It's not limited today. It's not a convenient thing, but it is absolutely an option. The major rationale for this action is that for every requester that came forward to us, and these were really difficult cases, numerous pallets of sod having been laid, and now trying to hand water this in. I mean, it was really heartbreaking. That numerous, essentially, every other property in that neighborhood is suffering the same thing. So there's a very important degree of consistency and perception within the community about how these variances have been handled. The other thing that occurred to me is if a variance were granted and you're watering in what clearly to be understood outside of, all you have to do is look at your address and find out what days you're supposed to be watering. I am concerned to the reaction of visitors, residents to the club, wondering why they're watering. It's not your problem, but it does become a problem of credibility to the commission and to the city because people have had thousands of dollars of investments in landscaping and not being able to adequately water. So that's of great concern to me to break this out and grant a variance because people are going to see it. It is an enclosed area. You've answered one of my questions, which is you want to just restrict it to maybe it's a half an acre. But people are going to see that. And I think we want to be very careful with that. So I'll go back to where I think we're really at if there's no more discussion, which is A, consider this not a time-pressing issue, in which case you can withdraw the variance tonight, there's no vote. If we proceed, there will be a vote, and I can't really say which way it'll go. I mean, we each vote, it's a majority, and it's a recommendation to the city council. They have typically followed the Water Commission's recommendations, but there's no guarantee either way. So I kind of will put that back to you on what you might want to do tonight, because if you want to proceed, we know what we need to do next. I think we've completed our discussions based on the information we have.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
there was at least one prior instance where a motion was made in a circumstance like this to just table it so that it can stay on the agenda and the customer could decide whether or not to pursue it further. So I think that's also another option. I don't think you have to have a recommendation tonight.
Okay, and I'm amenable to that. I'm not, maybe you can get some clarification on that, Nancy?
That could be an option, however, that item continues to flow over onto our agenda. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to turn it off. And if I understood you correctly, Mr. Overman, you are not seeking the variance at this time?
I'm not in a hurry to get this variance. I'm concerned about our business there,
Right.
but I'm also speaking as a business owner and a citizen of Garden Ridge overall for future. So I don't want to rush it, And so I think that maybe his suggestion would be the wisest thing to do, would maybe to table it. If you feel like you need more discussion with me, both as here as a representative of the Club of Garden Ridge and also as a business owner, that to discuss the possibility of an ordinance change, or is it a variance? And so that's why I'm torn. I don't know if it needs to be a variance or a consideration of relooking at the ordinance. I'm not sure.
If this item is tabled, y'all need to be very specific about a time frame and, when it's going to be heard again. Because this will continue on an agenda as if we have an item before us. Okay? And then if Mr. Overman's not ready to come back, or we don't have movement on Ordinance 61, then that's going to be an item that there's going to have to be continual communication between staff and Mr. Overman. Are you ready to move forward? Water Commission isn't ready, or does not have a proposal for Ordinance 61. So I think that it's kind of like leaving it dangling, and I don't think that's a very good or clean idea or way for the Water Commission to conduct this.
To be clear, what I'm saying, the Ordinance 61 potential changes are not part of this discussion. The request that's here is for the variance.
Right.
So if there's any tabling, it's tabling the variance. The Ordinance 61, we'll do that in our normal process. That's not part of this. So I think what the chairman's going to be.
Does Ordinance 61 pertain to this type of discussion tonight?
Ordinance 61 is the demand reduction or demand measures ordinance.
The watering restrictions, it covers the watering
But
restrictions.
would it address the separation of private ownership and businesses?
If the council adopts that, but again, the agenda item that we're doing right now is your request for a variance that you've put in.
Right.
So I'll turn it back to Mr. Chairman, but I think the question that he's asking is whether or not you want to move forward the variance. The Ordinance 61 process is going to happen no matter what. We're already looking at that.
Right, I see.
So the question for you is, I think is going to be, do you want to continue with the variance request or withdraw it as it is? So that, Mr. Chairman, I'm trying to speak for you. I'll turn it back to you.
No, I think that's correct. I mean, we have, Ordinance 61 specifies how we manage during drought conditions. That's where all the stages come from. That's where the variance process is derived. It's quite lengthy and a lot of details in it.
Do you feel like you have enough questions answered to take a vote on the variance request? So I guess what I'm asking, do I need to come back to the table with more specifics? Or does the council feel like they have, or the commission, sorry, feel like they have enough information through this discussion to make a decision?
I can't speak for everybody. I think I personally have enough information, and this isn't the court of last resort here either. This recommendation, either way, goes to the city council in the same discussion. But we're a working group, and we tend to do the heavy lifting and digging on things like this before presenting it to the city council. Taking action on this does put it in one camp or the other. It clearly lets you know where you stand. And
then I'm going to leave my variance request on the table tonight for a vote, because I've said everything I feel like I need to say, and I feel like I've made the best case I can in answering questions, and I appreciate everybody listening. And so I'll leave it on the table since we've gone to this extent in our conversation.
At this point, if there's no more discussion, comments, or thoughts on this, I would like to request a motion on this variance request.
Can we comment after the motion, or do we want to?
Yeah, once it's placed and seconded, it can be commented. We can have discussion.
Okay.
So I'll ask just for clarification, because my understanding is we would be making a recommendation to city council to approve a variance. If we're not going to recommend approval, there's no need to make any recommendation at all. That would be my understanding, because we're not an approval authority.
It is a recommendation, but either way, it's a placed motion.
Yes, you make your recommendation by, you make a motion to recommend to the city council. Right, to either approve or deny.
Well, I have no recommendation for the city council at this time.
Nancy, as the chair, am I able to make a motion?
Yeah. Okay.
I'd like to put forward a motion that the variance request as presented be denied, recommendation for denial. Do I have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second for denial of the requested variance. Any discussion at this point?
I'd like to say a couple of things, and I echo Mr. Harshberger's. I don't think that Mr. Overman has presented all options. I think there is some options for vegetation. I also think you should explore the well you have on site and get with the Edwards people, but and I don't know if Stephen can help me with the 2 acre feet. That's a fair amount of water.
We're not connected to the well, is Dr. Carmichael. It's just a well. It's not connected to anything. Everything that we have at the club is connected to city water.
Yes, but you could look at connecting the well or putting in a separate system to help with your water needs. But I think there needs to be more thought and more information presented to the council.
Any further discussion on the motion?
So based on what we have right now would be the basis of any recommendation. It does not prevent the customer from coming back. You know, you certainly can carry it forward to council based on our recommendation, but you could also resubmit at some future time. Right? It doesn't limit you in any way. And that would be the understanding upon which I would vote, so.
I'd like to call the motion to a vote for denial of the variance request. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries and will be recommended. And just in closing, appreciate your time. It's very clear that what you're talking about has been on the minds. In fact, there's a subcommittee looking at this to deal with it. Unfortunately, our time frame is uncertain at this point. It has to go through a number of steps and reviews. But please take our questioning and so on as a serious understanding of the information that you've presented us. It is necessary for us to take something and move it forward or backwards one way or the other, and please accept it as that.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item D, future agenda items. Do the commissioners have any input on future items at this point? Okay, thank you. Item number 5, citizens' comment period. Do we have any citizens who wish to speak at this point? No? And that takes us to item 7. That concludes all the items on the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
May I have a second? Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.